Good afternoon to all. We are here to begin the first session of the conference, the theme of which is Mental Health and Well-Being in Schools, Indian Perspective. The session is chaired by Professor C.G. Venkateshwar Murthy, Dean Academics from RIA Mysuru. And the presenters for this session are Dr. Biswajit Saha, Director Training and Skill Education, CBSE, Ms. Ratna Sharma, Public Relations Officer, CBSE Delhi, who are presenting on the theme Mental Health and Well-Being of School Students in India, the Current Scenario. The second presentation is made by Professor Veera Gupta, Professor NIPA, on the topic Exploring Policies for Mental Health and Wellness for Students. The third presentation would be made by me, Dr. Ruchi Shukla, Assistant Professor from DEFI NCERT, on the topic Guidance and Counseling for Mental Health and Well-Being across different school systems. This session spans from 12 to 1:30 p.m. All speakers would have 15 minutes of time for presentation. And at the end of all the presentation, we would seek the chair's remarks and observations, followed by any questions that the participants may have. So we begin the first session on the theme Mental Health and Well-Being in Schools, Indian Perspective. And I invite Dr. Biswajit Saha and Ms. Ratna Sharma ji from CBSE to please make their presentation.
Good afternoon, Dr. Shukla. Who's going first?
No, you can. Please.
Because she did not put the order in place, so I thought I would start.
No issue. Because you start, I will intervene in between.
Sir, your mic is on, Rama ma'am and Dr. Saha.
Yeah, so we were discussing.
No, ma'am. Ma'am, anything I can help with?
No, it's okay. I think I'll just start my presentation. Dr. Saha has already permitted. A very good afternoon to all the esteemed officers of the Ministry of Education who are present here, all the members of NCERT who have organized this wonderful conference, colleagues and members of MANODARPAN working group, the entire team of organizers at RI Bhopal, Dr. Saha, my dear colleague and Director Skills CBSE, all the principals, teachers and friends. As we all know that every year 10th of October is celebrated as the International Mental Health Day. This day also marks the beginning of International Mental Health Week in many places. And this year we have taken a lead under the MANODARPAN initiative of the Ministry of Education to celebrate this occasion as two-day national conference on mental health and well-being in schools and role of administrators for the benefit of all the stakeholders. Health per se is not merely a state of absence of disease, but a state of physical, social, mental, and emotional well-being. If mental well-being is impacted, it affects all aspects of health. और ये हम बहुत अच्छी तरह से समझ चुके हैं, बोर्ड में हम ये प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि इस तरह की चीजों को और समझा जाए, खासकर यूथ के लिए, एडोलेसेंट्स के लिए. The WHO World Mental Health Report 2022 says that 8% of young children aged 5 to 9 years and 14% of adolescents in the age group of 10 to 19 years have mental health issues. और वो कई तरह के issues की बात करते हैं. Anxiety है उनमें से एक, depression है, eating disorder है, और भी कई serious समस्याओं की जिक्र उसमें किया गया है. It is alarming to know that the 5th most prevalent cause of death between the ages of 10 to 19 years is suicide, according to a UNICEF report which was published in 2021. In fact, यही सब देखते हुए mental health has been included as part of the SDG to be achieved by 2030. तो अगर वर्ल्ड ओवर हम लोग इस तरह की बातें सुनते और करते आ रहे हैं तो हिंदुस्तान में हमारा पर्सपेक्टिव क्या बनना चाहिए, इसी पर आज विचार करने की हमें बहुत आवश्यकता है. And this brings us back to the role of schools in India in creating safe and enriching spaces for students while they are in the portals of school. Let me share 2 cases here. हमारे पिछले एक्सपीरियंस जो रहे हैं उनमें से मैं 2 उदाहरण आपके साथ शेयर करना चाहूंगी. One is that of a boy called Rohit, उसका नाम बदल गया है for obvious reasons, who has fully prepared for his class 12 board exams. He has gone through his textbooks, practiced almost all the sample question papers, but still feels nervous. If he tells his parents, he will certainly be scolded. कि तुम सारा दिन तो किताब लेके बैठे रहते हो और अभी भी तुम नर्वस नजर आ रहे हो, चलो और ट्यूशन करते हैं, चलो और कोचिंग करते हैं. So he's looking for someone who can help him build his confidence to face exams. दूसरा केस जो मैं आपके साथ शेयर करना चाह रही हूँ वो एक ऐसे बच्चे का है जिसका कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है मैथमेटिक्स में. मैंने उसको शिवानी नाम दिया. She did not perform well in her pre-boards too. Now she is too worried about her final exams and she fears that she won't get through the subject and she's spending sleepless nights. अब सवाल ये उठता है कि हम अपनी यूथ को किस चीज के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं. आज सुबह के सेशन में शेषाद्री ने एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण सवाल पर प्रश्न उठाया था. एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न उठाया था कि एजुकेशन का पर्पस क्या है. क्या हमारा रोल स्कूल में सिर्फ एक बच्चे को एग्जाम क्रैक कराने का बनता है, लाइक अ क्लेवर स्ट्रेटेजिस्ट? क्या हम स्ट्रेटेजिस्ट प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं स्कूलों के अंदर? आई एम श्योर हम सब यही कहेंगे कि नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है, क्योंकि besides relevant and quality education, schools also have to be safety nets for social, emotional, and physical well-being. CBSE over the last 9 years has always been student-friendly board. It has designed its policies and programs for the benefits of students with a focus on the holistic development, giving equal weightage to curricular and co-curricular aspects of education. The mental and well-being of students was well recognized by CBSE way back in 1998, and it has been providing psychological counseling for the last 25 years continuously across the world to the students and parents of more than 27,000 affiliated schools which are spread across various geographies of the world. इस साल हम ये 25वां वर्ष मना रहे हैं जब CBSE ने ये साइकोलॉजिकल काउंसलिंग की शुरुआत की थी, जैसा मैंने बताया 1998 में. और यहाँ पर बहुत से ऐसे मेरे दोस्त, मेरे सहभागी प्रिंसिपल्स और काउंसलर्स मौजूद होंगे जो इस बात में हामी भरेंगे. Initially started to handle anxiety before and after exams. हम लोगों ने एक पायलट किया था 1998 में, केवल 15 दिन का, जिसमें हमने ये देखा कि अगर बच्चों को एग्जाम से लेकर एंजाइटी हो रही है तो उसको डिसिपेट कैसे कर सकते हैं. और हमने अपने ही सिस्टम से उन काउंसलर्स और उन प्रिंसिपल्स को इन्वाइट किया कि आप आइए और हमारे साथ जुड़िए, और एक ऐसी हेल्पलाइन, टेली हेल्पलाइन की शुरुआत हमने की 1998 में, जो आज तक कंटिन्यू कर रही है. और आज कई चीजें, कई आयाम हमने इसमें तरह की फैसिलिटीज और जोड़ दी हैं, जो कि इसको एक फ्लैगशिप प्रोग्राम के नाम की तरह से आजकल इसे जाना जा रहा है. I'll give a brief presentation just to give you a glimpse of what we are doing. Is my presentation visible? Hello?
No.
Ma'am, we can't see it right now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. You can proceed, ma'am.
Yes, I will. अब दिख रहा है?
Ma'am, we can't see it here from.
But we can see, ma'am.
Okay, other participants can see, ma'am. So
Your voice is very clear.
तो मैं कंटिन्यू करती हूँ. बहुत ब्रीफ है, बहुत थोड़े सारांश ही है ये, ज्यादा मैंने डिटेल में बात नहीं की है, सिर्फ एक झलक देने की इसमें एक कोशिश की गई है. हमने एक साइकोलॉजिकल काउंसलिंग स्टार्ट की थी. हमने मनोवैज्ञानिक काउंसलिंग की शुरुआत की थी 1998 में, और इट वाज बेसिकली एन आउटरीच प्रोग्राम. और इसके कुछ संक्षेप में मैं आपसे चीजें डिस्कस करना चाहती हूँ कि इसको हमने बहुत ही एक डाइवर्स पॉपुलेशन और वास्ट जियोग्राफिकल स्प्रेड, जैसा कि मैंने कहा कि हमारे साथ बहुत तरह के स्कूल जुड़े हुए हैं, KVS और JNV भी हैं, प्राइवेट स्कूल भी हैं हमारे साथ, और हमारे विदेशों में स्थित विद्यालय भी हैं. तो उन सभी के बच्चों के लिए हमने सोचा कि कुछ किया जाए इसको, और इस शुरुआत को हमने 25 साल पहले, जैसा मैंने बताया कि हमने किया था। और शायद उस समय मैं ये माफी चाहूंगी अगर मैं गलत हूँ, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि शायद हमारा पहला बोर्ड था इस प्रकार की एक सुविधा बच्चों को प्रदान करने के लिए, और हमने टेली काउंसलिंग से उसकी शुरुआत की थी, और 10वीं और 12वीं के बच्चों के लिए हमने ये सुविधा आरंभ की थी। और वॉलंटियर्स थे हमारे पास, स्कूल के काउंसलर्स हमारे अपने सिस्टम में से, और हमारे प्रिंसिपल्स, क्योंकि वो डेली इस तरह का कार्य कर रहे थे, तो उन सब ने सहर्ष हमारे साथ जुड़ना मंजूर किया। और टेली काउंसलिंग की वर्ल्ड वाइड सर्विस अगर मैं कहूँ तो साइमल्टेनियसली हम ये 2 चरणों में ये हर साल एनुअली हम ये काम करते हैं, जो कि इंडिया में, यूएई में, कतर में, कुवैत, यूएसए, सल्तनत ऑफ ओमान, सिंगापुर, किंगडम ऑफ सऊदी अरब, जापान और नेपाल में जो हमारे स्कूल हैं उन सब के साथ ये, उनके बच्चों के साथ ये फैसिलिटी साझा की जाती है। और हमने ये पाया कि हमारी जो पॉपुलेशन है जो बच्चों की और पेरेंट्स की, उसमें हमारे पेरेंट्स भी जुड़े हैं, और उसमें बहुत ही डाइवर्स और इंक्लूसिव पॉपुलेशन है। हमारा बेस जो है वो सिर्फ सीबीएसई के स्कूलों तक महदूद नहीं रह गया है, बिकॉज कई तरह के स्कूल बोर्ड्स के बच्चे भी हमारे साथ आते हैं। तो एक तरह से बहुत एक इंक्लूसिव सिस्टम बन गया है ये, जिसमें उनके पेरेंट्स भी हमारे साथ जुड़ते हैं, वो बच्चे भी हमारे साथ अपनी प्रॉब्लम साझा करते हैं, और ना सिर्फ 10वीं 12वीं के बल्कि 5वीं 6वीं 7वीं के बच्चे भी हैं जो हमारे साथ जुड़ते हैं। तो स्पेशल बच्चों के लिए भी हमारे साथ स्पेशल एजुकेटर्स हैं जो उनकी समस्याओं का भी समाधान करने की कोशिश करते हैं। हमारी आउटरीच जो है वो ओवर द इयर्स, जैसा मैंने कहा कि वो बढ़ गई है, एंड यूजिंग मल्टीमीडिया एंड आईसीटी द सर्विसेज हैव बीन ब्रॉड बेस्ड फॉर टेली काउंसलिंग थ्रू सेंट्रलाइज्ड एक्सेस सिस्टम, जिसमें हम एक टोल फ्री नंबर पूरे देश में हम लोग एक बांट देते हैं उस नंबर को, और उस नंबर पर बच्चे हमसे संपर्क करते हैं। इंटरैक्टिव वॉइस रिस्पॉन्स सिस्टम का हम लोग इस्तेमाल करते हैं, जिसमें हम प्री रिकॉर्डेड जो जानकारियां हैं, फ्रीक्वेंटली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस हैं, जो हमें ओवर द ईयर्स हमें लगता है कि बच्चे बार बार एक ही तरह के सवाल हमसे पूछ रहे हैं, तो हम वो उन पे रिकॉर्ड करके डाल देते हैं, जिससे बच्चे को किसी तरह से कहीं पे भी किसी भी वक्त उसे जरूरत हो तो वो मूल जानकारियां जो उसके लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है, इंक्लूडिंग द नेम्स ऑफ रीजनल ऑफिसर्स ऑल्सो, हम उसमें वो उन्हें देते हैं कि उन्हें कहाँ पर संपर्क करना है। उसके साथ साथ हम उन्हें टिप्स देते हैं कि कंसंट्रेशन कैसे बढ़ाई जाए, एंग्जाइटी से कैसे दूर रहा जाए। बच्चों के लिए, पेरेंट्स के लिए टिप्स देते हैं कि इस दौरान बच्चों को किस तरह से समझें वो, और इस तरह हम एक तरह से एक संवाद उनके साथ करते हैं ताकि बच्चों को कम से कम परेशानी और मानसिक तनाव का सामना करना पड़े। क्वेश्चन आंसर कॉलम्स हम छापते हैं रीडिंग न्यूज़पेपर्स में, और न्यूज़पेपर्स हमारा बहुत साथ देते हैं, और बड़ी खुशी वो हमें नेशनल और इंटरनेशनल कवरेज देते हैं इस समय में, जहां हम एक साप्ताहिक कॉलम छापते हैं और उसमें बच्चों की और पेरेंट्स की समस्याओं का समाधान करते हैं। हम फ्रीक्वेंटली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस अलग से भी अपने वेबसाइट पर डालते हैं, हम पॉडकास्ट बनाकर डालते हैं, हिंदी और इंग्लिश में डालते हैं, और मास अवेयरनेस हमने एडोलेसेंट प्रॉब्लम्स पर भी हमने ये चर्चा शुरू की है, जिसमें हमने देखा है कि एक ऑडियो विजुअल प्रेजेंटेशन हमने तरह तरह के टॉपिक्स को लेकर बनाई है, जिसको हमने एक शीर्षक दिया है नोइंग चिल्ड्रन बेटर। मैं ये बताना चाहूंगी कि नोइंग चिल्ड्रन बेटर नाम से हमने एक हैंडबुक भी तैयार की थी 2004-5 के आसपास, जिसमें हमने सिर्फ एक सिम्टम्स को आइडेंटिफाई किया। जैसे हम लोग अभी सुबह से बात कर रहे हैं, अर्ली इंटरवेंशन और अर्ली आइडेंटिफिकेशन की बात कर रहे हैं। तो आइडेंटिफिकेशन से मेरा ये कहना है कि अगर हम टीचर को अगर हम सेंसिटाइज कर देते हैं छोटी छोटी प्रॉब्लम्स को समझने में, तो ये बहुत ही कारगर हो सकता है, क्योंकि एक टीचर कई बैचेस को आगे समझने में सक्षम होती है और उसके बाद वो रेफरल का काम कर सकती हैं। उतना भी यदि हम टीचर्स को समझा दें तो हम बहुत बड़ा काम कर रहे होंगे बच्चों की मेंटल हेल्थ को लेकर। तो इस तरह से हमने कई तरह के जो टॉपिक्स हैं वो हमने इसमें डिस्कस किए हुए हैं। जो ऑडियो विजुअल प्रेजेंटेशंस की मैंने बात बताई, तो हमने उसमें एग्रेशन को हैंडल किया है, हमने एग्जाम एंग्जाइटी के बारे में लोगों को बताया है, चर्चा की है। यूट्यूब पर ये सारे चैनल्स पे आपको ये मिल जाएंगे लिंक्स हमारे यूट्यूब चैनल पर। डिप्रेशन के बारे में हमने बात की है, हमने वैल्यू सिस्टम्स पे भी बात की है कि बच्चों में किस तरह से वैल्यू जनरेट करें, उनको डिसर्निंग बनाएं कि क्या गलत है क्या सही है, बहुत छोटे छोटे उदाहरण देकर। स्पेसिफिक लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटीज पर, क्योंकि अगर बच्चा शुरू में ही आइडेंटिफाई नहीं होगा तो ये प्रॉब्लम बढ़ती जाएगी। इंटरनेट और एडिक्शन डिसऑर्डर्स जो है अब DSM में भी रिकॉग्नाइज किया गया है एक डिसऑर्डर की तरह से। तो इंटरनेट की बढ़ती समस्याओं को देखकर हमने उसके बारे में भी बच्चों को और पेरेंट्स के साथ और जनरल पब्लिक के साथ, आम जनता के साथ उन्हें एजुकेट करने, सेंसिटाइज करने के लिए ये प्रयास किया है। सब्सटेंस यूज डिसऑर्डर जो एक बड़ी बड़ी समस्या बनती जा रही है, उस पर भी हमने चर्चाएं की हैं। और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट हमने कहा है लाइफ स्किल्स। लाइफ यदि बच्चे को हम सेंसिटाइज कर दें उसकी डिसीजन मेकिंग और क्रिटिकल एबिलिटीज को, और इस तरह की हमने जो इसमें चर्चाएं की हैं, वो किसी ना किसी तरह से, चाहे थोड़ा या बहुत, ये हम नहीं जानते हैं, लेकिन हमने अपनी तरफ से ये प्रयास किया है कि बच्चे और पेरेंट्स और कम्युनिटी में ये संवाद शुरू हो, एक डायलॉग की शुरुआत हो जाए। और इसी पर्पज से हमने ये सब मटेरियल तैयार करके अपने यूट्यूब चैनल पर डाला है। सपोर्ट और अवेयरनेस की जहां तक बात है, हम ये साइकोलॉजिकल सपोर्ट जैसा मैंने कहा कि हम देते जा रहे हैं। उसके अलावा हम एक स्टेप आगे गए और हमने कहा कि बच्चों करियर गाइडेंस की भी हम थोड़ी संभावनाएं बढ़ाएं, और +2 के बाद बच्चों को क्या क्या उनको सुविधाएं मिल सकती हैं, कैसे कैसे कोर्सेज कर सकते हैं, कैसे कैसे विश्वविद्यालय हैं जहाँ पर वो अपनी पसंद के कोर्स कर सकते हैं, उसकी क्या क्या रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, वो सब को देखते हुए हमने एक छोटा एक कंपेंडियम जो बहुत सराहा गया। मैं बहुत धन्यवादी हूँ इस बात को कि लोगों ने एक्सेप्ट भी किया है उसको। और एक हमने मेंटल हेल्थ का मैनुअल बनाया वेलबींग के, जिसको कि हमने 2019 में और 20 में जब कोविड अपने चरम पर था तब हमने उसे रिलीज किया था। और उसमें हमारे बहुत से साथी यहाँ पर मौजूद हैं, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स में भी और टास्क फोर्स में भी मेरे कई साथी हैं यहाँ पर जिन्होंने इसमें सहयोग दिया। और हम फाइनली एक चीज बनाकर लोगों को हमने प्रस्तुत की कि आप इस तरह से कोविड और कोविड के बाद की समस्याओं से किस तरह निपट सकते हैं। उसमें पेरेंट्स के लिए भी हमने बहुत से टॉपिक्स रखे, हमने मदर्स के लिए रखे, सिंगल मदर्स की बात की, कोविड
से जेंटल रिमाइंडर फॉर द टाइम, थैंक यू।
आई विल। और कोविड को उसके बाद भी हमने, जैसे आज भी हम बात कर रहे हैं कि कोविड की समस्याओं को अभी भी हमारे साथ वो चल रही हैं, समाप्त नहीं हुई हैं, लेकिन उन्हें हैंडल करने के लिए हम स्कूल सिस्टम में क्या क्या कर सकते हैं। तो कुल मिलाकर मुझे ये कहना है कि मेंटल हेल्थ इज द अल्टीमेट वेल्थ। मेरा ये कहना है कि मेंटल हेल्थ जो है वो सबसे ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है। और इसके अलावा हम लोग कुछ और यदि हम करने का प्रयास करें तो शायद मेरे मायनों में वो गलत। अगर एक सिंगल हैंडेडली अगर हम किसी चीज की हम कोशिश करते हैं, क्योंकि ये सब जो है सिस्टम ये हमारे इकट्ठे हर तरह से हमें ये रिमाइंड कराते हैं कि मेंटल हेल्थ हमारे लिए कितनी इम्पोर्टेंट है। तो डिफरेंट स्ट्रैटेजीज हमारी क्या हो सकती हैं और रेगुलर साइकोलॉजिकल वेलबींग बच्चों की हम कैसे देख सकते हैं। मैं ये भी कहना चाहूंगी कि CBSE इज ऑल्सो अ प्राउड पार्टनर एंड ऑन बोर्ड मनोदर्पण, विच इज पार्ट ऑफ द आत्मनिर्भर अभियान, which was initiated by the Honorable Prime Minister, who gave the clarion call for this. The importance of mental well-being of youth in a country's development is well aligned for self-reliance and it is well established. तो कॉमन चीजें हम क्या कर सकते हैं? मेरे ख्याल से one of the major takeaways from the new national policy is the increased focus on arts and the proposed integration of arts and sciences. मेरा ख्याल से हमें यहाँ ध्यान देने की बहुत जरूरत है। ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट की जहाँ हम बात करते हैं तो सिर्फ कॉन्सेप्ट्स को पढ़ना नहीं है, लेकिन एसेंशियल लाइफ स्किल्स को भी आत्मसात करने की हमें जरूरत पड़ेगी और बच्चों को ये सिखाना पड़ेगा, उन्हें सेंसिटाइज करना पड़ेगा। देयर आर इनफ एंड मोर स्टडीज दैट creative engagements reduce depression and isolation. Creative pursuits lead to increased brain function as also the mental and physical health. तो सभी चीजों के लिए एक कारगर हमारे पास एक उपाय है जिसका इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ आर्ट एंड एजुकेशन, जिसमें हम बच्चों को एक्सपीरियंशियल लर्निंग सिखा सकते हैं, इन्वेस्टिगेशन सिखा सकते हैं, एक्सप्लोरेशन सीखते हैं बच्चे और क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग सीखते हैं बच्चे। इस तरह से जॉयफुल लर्निंग अगर हम करा सकें क्लासरूम में तो मेरा ख्याल से ये बहुत ही हमारे लिए एक इम्पॉर्टेंट चैलेंज है कि हम किस तरह से अपनी टीचिंग को जॉयफुल बना सकें ताकि जो एकेडमिक से रिलेटेड समस्याएं हैं वो बच्चों में ना आए। उसके साथ साथ लाइफ स्किल्स को अगर हम प्रमोट करते हैं तो एक होलिस्टिक डेवलपमेंट की हम बात कर सकते हैं। NEP 2020 also promotes no hard separations or integrating academic subjects with sports, cultural and vocational disciplines. इससे हेल्प मिलेगी कि नो चाइल्ड इज लेफ्ट बिहाइंड। हम हर तरह के बच्चे की प्रॉब्लम्स को और उसकी क्षमता को हम एड्रेस कर पाएंगे। मेरा ख्याल से मेरे कुलीग डॉक्टर साहा इस चीज पर और प्रकाश डालेंगे। और इसके बाद मुझे लगता है कि एक क्रॉस करिकुलर अप्रोच जो बोर्ड ने अपनाई है वो शायद एक एग्जाम्पल के रूप में हम चर्चा कर सकते हैं, किसी और फोरम पर भी हम ये बात कर सकते हैं, और हमारी सब चीजें वेबसाइट पर अवेलेबल हैं जिनको देखा जा सकता है. I would just like for a second for all of us to imagine a class where Hindustani classical music is aligned with teaching of fraction in mathematics. Who would have learning about elements in chemistry could also be possible through a traditional form of poetry in Japan, which is called haiku. तो इस तरह की इंटरवेंशंस, इस तरह के इनोवेशंस और इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी लर्निंग जो है, ये हम लोगों को बहुत ही जरूरत है इन चीजों को समझने की और करने की, ताकि एक जॉयफुल एटमॉस्फेयर में हम बच्चों को स्कूल के अंदर जो सबसे बड़े सेफ्टी नेट्स हैं मेरे हिसाब से, उन्हें हम पाल सकें. रोल ऑफ स्कूल्स इज आल्सो टू प्रिपेयर responsible and able human beings and citizens. So teaching 21st century skills and focus on life skills will surely help schools and students in the holistic progress. School future ready रहना होगा, हमें alternative सोचने पड़ेंगे, और flexibility और enhancing adaptive abilities जो हैं, इस पे हमें ज़्यादा जोर देना पड़ेगा. It also needs to be ensured that there are wellness teachers in schools for regular psychosocial well-being of students. This will certainly help in early identification and intervention. जैसा मैंने पहले कहा, issues and traumas of our students cannot be trivialized. हमने already बात कर ली है, हम डेली अखबारों में पढ़ते हैं, हम डेली ये चर्चाएं करते हैं कि बच्चों का भविष्य जो है यदि हमें सुधारना है तो उनकी केयर करना, हमें मेंटल और फिजिकल और सोशल हर तरह की हमें उनकी केयर करनी पड़ेगी. Schools will also have to provide enabling environment where students can build resilience and thrive in care, trust and inclusive spaces. जहाँ हम spaces की बात कर रहे हैं, यहाँ मैं एक और चीज कहना चाहूँगी और उसके बाद मैं अपने इस सेशन का समापन करना चाहूँगी. An alignment of teachers and parents as first aid workers is very important for early identification. ये रेफरेंस की हम बात करते हैं, इसमें पेरेंट्स को भी हमें इन्वॉल्व करना पड़ेगा स्कूल सिस्टम में, उनकी भागीदारी भी उतनी ही इम्पोर्टेंट है. So collaborations between schools and parents will go a long way in bringing the subtle changes that all of us are looking for. There is a need to create supportive environment at school also, and at school campuses where a child feels, encouraged to share and disclose the nagging issues. कई बार ये होता है कि उसको सपोर्ट नहीं मिल रही होती है, तो इसलिए बच्चे उन प्रॉब्लम्स को झेलते रहते हैं और उसका कोई बहुत ही विकृत रूप हमारे सामने फिर आगे आता है. Capacity building of the faculty, counselors and supporting staff is very important for integrating all the mental health components in daily transactions among parents, and this will bring out the desired change. I sincerely hope that by the end of these 2 days of brainstorming, we can sum up the suggestions in the form of a draft document, which can be presented to the Ministry of Education to draw national policy on national and mental health issues of all students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramaj. Thank you very much. And I think Dr. Biswajit Saha, we will request Dr. Saha to start.
I will just sum up because most of the point.
We will also honor the time and allow people to directly engage. Thank you, Dr. Saha.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Murthy. And I think my colleague has elaborately put the holistic pictures, what in school spaces or what way school board is functionally actively involving the school leaders as well as the teachers and also the parent community. So first of all, let me thank NCERT, RI Bhopals and other dignitaries here. So at this stage, when the theme is mental well-being, are actually is a priority somewhere thematically, it has been shown that it is for all and a global priority. Now, how can we lead the school? So, as Ramaji has rightly mentioned, the NEP No Heart Separations agenda is how we can involve in holistic learning so that early identifications of mental illness, and for mental illness, I think there is no specific age group or any specific time. At any point of time, that anxiety and depressions or any kind of this mental illness behavior may be surfaced in the school premises or at home. Now, for that purpose, the existing systems, despite of rules and regulations, policy, so everything's are documented and some things are readily available in school library. And if we go through this online paradigm, there are huge literature. My question is how and whether all the teachers in the school, all the stakeholders in the schools are ready at this stage or not. I think it's better our principal can answer this particular question. And if answer is yes, what way we are actually behaving in the school premises? The suppressing pedagogy to how we can allow the individual at this point of time, through that only, at least one can able to share his or her trauma with the school faculty. And sometimes this collaborative effort, what Ramaji has rightly mentioned, उसी का द्वारा हम next level तक parents तक भी पहुंच सकते हैं या parents भी many a times hesitate to communicate because वो school से निकाल ना दे तो Indian school perspective में mental illness को actually छुपाया जाता है and different kind of media interventions whatever कल भी जो पेपर में for 30 years आगरा का जो उस लेडी ने सफर किया है and it is none other than by his family her family sorry so इस तरह का घटना बहुत कॉमन है कुछ चीजें आते हैं कुछ चीजें आते नहीं हैं so इसलिए individually how the school teacher school leaders and management can take a positive effort to look into the perspective of the child, perspective of the learner. I think through that only we can celebrate this mental illness and mental well-being week. And most of the efforts of CBSE are being highlighted by Ramaji. Something through our academic unit, which are, again, let me share, with Expression India, we are doing some school student leaderships, especially on peer educator leaderships, we call it. And more than 2,500 schools are already enrolled and more than 6,000 students are trained. And they are categorically, besides our teachers, special counselor, those students are also actively involved to promote this kind of activities in the school premises and also in the neighborhood. With this, let me pause here because I think I have to respect the time. Yeah? Over to Professor Murthy. I can again intervene if there is any specific questions.
Thank you. I really appreciate Dr. Saha. You have very beautifully, chipped in and then tried to explain your perspective, elaborating on Ramaji's. Could we now move on to the next speaker, Professor Veera Gupta, professor from NIPA, who would be talking about exploring policies for mental health and wellness for students. Over to Professor Veera Gupta.
Thank you. Good morning. I think I'm audible and visible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
So my PPT is visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So I will be literally focusing at a different level that where we are with respect to policies for mental health in our country. Okay, so I am not really discussing at implementation level or at concept level. I'm discussing what is the policy backup with us for mental health. Okay, so before we go to what is mental health, let's understand a little difference or terminology what we use for mental health. Okay. So at times we take it as a very common parlance, though it could be literally a very critical stage or a state of a person. So what is mental health versus emotional health or psychological health versus disorder? Like we are just healthy or unhealthy, or we have reached a level of disorder of mental health, or we have reached a level of disability. So these are the stages of intensity of mental health, or we call it emotional health. So what are the differences? How do we navigate, or how do we move from just a healthy or unhealthy person to a disability. So if we see our DSM or International Classification of Disability, we see that mental health or mental conditions have been classified into two. One is psychosis, another is neurosis. Just for learning purposes, let's understand psychosis is with respect to disability, where we see criminals or somebody with a very, very severe disorders like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, OCD, phobias, or narcissism. What is the difference in psychosis? We need medicine. It is a pathological condition and we do need medication. Whereas in our school system, for teachers and principals or administrator, we generally come across the neurosis conditions where therapy things can help and can change the situation from a unhealthy situation to develop into disorder, or a disorder we can prevent from becoming a disability. So what are neurotic conditions? Stress, anxiety, overreaction sometimes, less control on our emotions such as anger, crying, rage, or perfectionist behavior, or a repetitive behavior, which is a milder version of OCD. Then we have ADHD, which has been not really included in our definition of a specific learning disability in our RPWD Act. Somehow it is missed, but at international level it is included. And of course, emotional frustrations, which our autistic child grows up because of socially awkward behavior. So these are just for a learning. Then what is the definition as per RPWD Act for mental illness? So this mental illness has been included in a policy, which is a legislative policy, and which is for the first time, because earlier mental illness was meant a disability, not just a disorder. So here we are very much protected and supported by a legislative act in a democratic country. So if I am a statutory body or a regulatory body, I have a backing of an act to frame rules or policies or orders or guidelines, because RPWD Act is available. And it defines what is mental illness, and it very aptly defines a lot many things which earlier we were not recognizing as a mental illness. So it is a very perfectly given definition by RPWD Act. Now, if this is a definition given, what is a policy or tool or test available with us as a counselor or as a school principal or as a DO to really assess? Now, after the Act, Ministry of Health and Social Justice also lays out regulations how any particular disability will be assessed and what would be the format and who will be the qualified persons who will assess that. So for mental illness also, they have given a scale, which is an IDEA scale. So if I find somebody, as a teacher, if I feel somebody needs an assessment, then I need to send them to a clinical psychologist who will administer this scale. And there is a scale administration guidelines and reporting format by which they will give a opinion or a report which will carry a score. And if it goes in the category of disability more than 40%, certainly the child is eligible for all kinds of provisions which are available and under RPWD Act. Now, how do I know what is a mental illness in children, and how should we locate it and send it to a clinical psychologist? So as a school teacher or as a school principal or as a DO, certainly I am not trained, but I have some kind of training or some kind of orientation that how should I identify this child. And if I identify, I can save a life. So sometimes we see if a child is sad, withdrawn, or severe mood swing, and at times because of mood swings, which we call Rona or Lutna or Matakna, that also affect our relationships. Then if a child is having problem in sitting still or staying in his or her seat, which is one of the symptom of ADHD, then does the student have wrong BMI or unexplained weight loss or weight gain or eating habits, which is also a sign of a mental disturbance. Where does the student look anxious or frequently reports symptoms such as headache and stomach? This is very, very common. When a child is emotionally disturbed, they say, I want to go to toilet. And after 5 minutes, they are fine. There's not really a problem. So this is a symptom of emotional disturbance. Then there are few students who also indulge in self-harm activities. They can cut, they can burn, and if though very small, but one has to take notice of these self-harming activities if any child is attempting to. Then of course drug and alcohol, which comes a little secondary stage, but primary stage also we can have these earlier symptoms which I have talked about. Then does the student have intense fear? That is very, very much closer to phobia, and in reality there is no danger, but child has a fear, or child does not have a fear and also is ready to attempt anything, to jump from fifth floor or jump from any floor or from terrace. So both are not very healthy behavior. So we got to make a difference in healthy behavior and non-healthy behavior, and then toxic behavior. So if we go up to the toxic behavior, certainly it is an emotional health problem. Then we see, sometimes child is having imaginary friends or talking to talking to themselves or talking to inanimate things. Certainly this is also a symptom the child is having some emotional issues. Then if child is having some drastic changes in their behavior which they were not doing earlier, so if they start fighting or using weapons, or they feel like they will hurt themselves or hurt others. Besides that, there are few activities which we notice very often at home or in the school. Nail biting, which we may or may not consider that this is a symptom of emotional disturbance. Crying, we feel crying is not a problem, anger is a problem. But too much of crying or isolating oneself or speaking lies or beating others or bullying, which are very common things among the children or in their social groups, these things also need to be noticed and checked as a tool. Now, do we have a policy that what is to be checked? Yes, we have. These are from our Prashast. So I think most of us know that Prashast is a tool which has come out from NCRT. MHRD has just released it, and it is a very good document which says some symptoms general, and then disability wise symptoms. So Prashast is there in the hands of everybody, and I understand app is also ready for Prashast. So this is available for everybody's use, and we must use it extensively to identify emotional this thing, and these are the symptoms given in that policy. I don't know if NCERT is going to release it as a statutory body also, because NCERT is a statutory academic authority of the country. So maybe they can release it as an academic authority also, and it is certainly has already been released by MHRD. So both are statutory bodies in any case. Now, as an academician or as a professor, what is the basis or what is the foundation of mental illness? So, of course, we will be identifying or screening and checking and giving them provisions and everything. But what is the root cause of mental illness, and how we as a educational planners or professors should work or change it? So the root cause of all mental illness is a fear, the fear of failure or fall. So all of us who are organisms, we want to protect our life. And if we feel that my life is at a danger, then I fear. So at times life get replaced by ego, or life may replaced by criticism, but at the core of it, I fear that my life is in danger. And if I feel that life is in danger, I start coping, I start developing coping mechanism. So that is a main issue. If we, I mean, of course, in education system, there are a lot many paradigm shifts which are taking place, and we don't want to fail a child, we don't want to punish a child, we don't want to criticize a child, we want to identify strengths and work towards the development of strength and potential. But these are our academic policies or academic philosophies which are getting converted into policies, but practicing, yes, some are being percolated, some are not. But this is the basis, that if I have a feeling of inadequacies, I fear. And that fear leads to lot many emotional problems, and fear leads to inferiority complex, guilt, shame, and all this. So if my school system gets rid of this guilt and shame, which generally earlier, at least my generation, faced in all our school assignments, whether we are punished or we are praised or we are given, lot many trophies. So if we remove that fear complex, then maybe we will be able to develop healthy individuals without fear and without mental illness or mental disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Veera Gupta. You have given us a panoramic view of what constitutes the behavioral, underlying dynamics, and then why do people behave the way they behave? What are the kind of determinants of our behavior leading to the non-normal behavior, abnormal behavior? Thank you very much. Could we now move on to our fourth speaker, Dr. Ruchi Shukla, my own colleague in NCERT. She would be talking about guidance and counseling for mental health and well-being across different school systems. Over to Dr. Ruchi Shukla.
Thank you, sir. The session talks about the Indian perspective on mental health and well-being. And here I would like to draw the attention upon the fact that India has education in its concurrent list, and because of which there are different school systems, different types of schools that have flourished and provided for the right to education to our children in the country. But along with this availability of different types of schools, they also come with their uniqueness, their unique needs, their unique challenges. And these need to be taken account of when one is talking in terms of guidance and counseling, in terms of mental health and well-being of these students who come to the different school systems. We have in detail over all our previous 3 sessions talked about what mental health is. I, however, would want to draw attention on how mental health impacts a child. Broadly speaking, it has an emotional, psychological, and social well-being aspect. May I please request the participants to mute themselves? Thank you. And how a child is in terms of his or her mental health goes on to impact how they feel, how they think, and eventually how they act. Right from the beginning of our conference, we have been talking about how small, big, or relatively perceived as trivial events go on to reflect in behaviors that are completely very unscalable in terms of a normal human being. And we sometimes think a small event will not have the impact or is not important enough in determining the person. But as Dr. Shishadri said, that even in the smallest of instances, even at the local level, we could have impacts that go to the global scenario. So mental health helps us in handling our stresses, in relating to others, how we see others, and also in the larger choice making in our life. So when mental health has all these implications, and it has the importance of altering not just the way a person thinks, but also largely the personality in which he develops into. The implications of mental health for holistic development, which is the aim of education, are tremendous. And schools as a system are not just places of transaction of information, but as all our speakers have very rightly put up, that they are places where a child comes to grow, to feel safe, to feel accepted. And only when the system is able to provide for this does the child excel in learning. And therefore, learning is a social activity. To take account of what and how mental health has taken its form over the past 2-3 years of the pandemic, NCERT and the MANODARPAN cell at NCERT had conducted a survey which has recently been released by the ministry. And we drew from the perception of school students and determined how they viewed their mental health and how they perceived the environment around them, especially in schools, to show how they are doing on the mental health front. So the survey, it was conducted over several school systems with participation from students. And as Professor Sibia had pointed in the morning, it had a huge sample size. And what came out of the survey was largely that, different school systems, there are certain things which are common across systems, whereas there are certain other things which are not common across systems, which are either leading to better coping with stressors or are leading to more stress. So just to give a bird's eye view of the different school systems, is that one centralized system is the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, which has schools not just across India, but also catering to the needs of people working abroad in countries and where their children require education. So KVS has set up units basically for children who are sons and daughters of central government employees, defense and paramilitary persons who are constantly on the move due to frequent transfers. The other centrally run education system, school system, is the JNV. Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas, or the Navodaya Vidyalaya Samitis as we would know them, are schools targeted specifically at meritorious rural students between grade 6 and grade 12. And these children and these school systems have also their uniqueness. Then we come to the state government schools, which are run, supported, and managed by the state governments through the taxations. And they have a unique population that comes to these schools. And then we have a larger unit of private schools across the country that have a population with their unique circumstance, with their unique inputs. Now, if you look at the findings of the survey, largely as we can see, and as Sibya ma'am had discussed, we would be having a very detailed presentation on 14th with stakeholders. But just a bird's eye view, KVS students were seen to have much better body image. When we talk about body image, we talk about how one feels about one's body and how confident one is about one's own looks, one's own confidence in conducting oneself, in moving in social settings, so on and so forth. Their satisfaction with personal life and school life was also good. Happiness was the commonly experienced emotion by most children, which was a very, very, heartwarming finding that we had through the survey. And then availability of social support and sharing of feelings with the relations was seen higher in KVS. Now, if we go with these understandings, we see that the important thing that the school type brings for school administrators and guidance and counseling functionary is that the students in the KVS are coming from a section of the society who are constantly on the move, which brings with it the uniqueness that they are at larger points in time distant from their families. The students are more from the nuclear family setups and do not always have extended families for help, support, and help them cope with the challenges and demands of everyday living. They also do not have a consistent peer group. Every time the parent gets transferred, their peer group changes. Their friend circle is disturbed, which is a reason for a lot of trauma for most of them, especially at the younger ages. Of course, as they grow and they develop their coping skills and they have the life skill that we frequently talk about of resilience, they are less stressed. Nevertheless, they are stressed because of these frequent movements and changes in the peer group. They have to make readjustments. And these readjustments start with cultural changes sometimes, spanning to changes in, lifestyle. बहुत गर्म जगह से एकदम से बहुत ठंडी जगह पहुंच गए. एक बहुत ही डेंसली पॉपुलेटेड सिटी से एक बहुत ही स्पार्सली पॉपुलेटेड सिटी में पहुंच गए. सो देखने में ये चीजें छोटी लगती हैं, लेकिन कहीं पे एक बच्चे के व्यक्तित्व पे इनका असर बहुत गहरा भी हो सकता है, और जो कि इस स्कूल सिस्टम के गाइडेंस काउंसलिंग फंक्शनरीज और स्कूल एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स के लिए एक चैलेंज है एंड नीड रिकग्निशन भी है कि अगर गाइडेंस एंड काउंसलिंग के इंटरवेंशन स्कूल में हो रहे हैं तो उनका मेजर फोकस शायद इन आयामों पे हो, तो बच्चों का एडजस्टमेंट, बच्चों का लर्निंग आउटपुट, बच्चों का होलिस्टिक डेवलपमेंट विल बी बेटर. Similarly, if we look at the JNVs, there were findings which showed that JNV students were very, they had a very high sense of responsibility for doing well in their life, which is or can be related to the fact that these students come after clearing a national level entrance exam, which is based on merit. And once you have cleared such an exam and coming from the background they come from, they feel that they are the ones who are the game changers for the family. So the sense of responsibility definitely can be seen to have increased. They have much more trust in their friends and peer group is very strong. So this finding was unique to the JNV systems. Then they had high satisfaction with school life, which was life in itself because they are 24/7 in that unit, being boarders for 6 months, getting vacations as per the calendar of the institution, but largely 24/7 they are in the school. Then they use coping strategies of yoga and meditation and altering the way they think. So you see the coping strategies to largely, undergo change as the basis or the school type changes. They have different strategies to cope with their stressors. And here we need to take account of the fact that these students are nearly always away from home, coming from the background and the rules and the guidelines under which the JNVs function. They have very limited access to family and loved ones. Then the added challenges that when they come at a 6th standard, they are also in their adolescent phase of life, which is a phase of challenge, both biologically, socially. So, that is the added burden or added challenge, added stressor that they come with. No family is close by whom they can approach at a shorter time interval. Then they have a very constructed, managed environment 24/7. Everything is time bound. इस समय ये होगा, इस समय ये होगा, इस समय ये होगा. बहुत बच्चे इतने कंस्ट्रक्शन को एडजस्ट करने में ज्यादा टाइम लेते हैं compared to others, and it can be a trauma and a stressor for most children. So one has to, as an administrator, as a counselor, take account of these aspects. Then, given the fact that they come from a background and it is a co-ed education, there is a lot of challenge because they have not worked with gender differences in the way they are expected to when they come into the school system. So that might be an added stressor. Then the fact that, as I said in the beginning, that they have come after beating an all India exam based on merit, the expectations just escalate. The parents, the teachers, the community, they all see the child as, the pivot around which their life is eventually going to move towards better, which builds in a lot of pressure in the child. So one needs to take into account these aspects. Then, of course, readjustment to family. We know of cases where they come from very, very humble backgrounds. जब वो JNV में आते हैं तो they get 3 meals a day, but when they go back to their families during vacations, it's a tough time because that privilege is no longer there. So their readjustment, there are children who don't want to go back home during vacations. But then psychologically speaking, staying away from family, not having very close relationships is definitely a challenge and a stressor, which of course needs accounting for when, as administrators at guidance counseling functionaries, we plan our annual activities, our interventions. Finally, state government schools also broadly revealed the same things as the JNVs and the KVs. But the uniqueness still remains in the system where largely जो स्टेट रन स्कूल होते हैं उनमें फी स्ट्रक्चर इज वेरी humble, and therefore families of parents who are daily wage earners, first generation of learners are coming into these schools. They are very heavily supporting their families, either in terms of household chores or in terms of being the extra earning hand. Then they have inconsistent study patterns because of their parents being migrant laborers or traveling to the village during the harvest season, and added family responsibilities, which makes a good number of state government schools with these unique characteristics. Then private schools are of all levels and categories. So I will not take them into greater detail, but broadly private schools may expectations high hoti hai because parents are paying much more as fees as compared to any of the government supported school types. So the burden of expectations from the parents कि हमने तुम्हें एक private school में इतनी fees देके पढ़ाया, that weighs on the child. Parents are busy because they have to earn that extra money to get the child into better institutions, to get him, more material benefits, so to say. And therefore, less support and less availability of, family, peer group, siblings to share, to unload their stresses on. And therefore, they're coping with the change, they're coping with challenges is also very different. And a school administrator, a school guidance counseling personnel needs to take into account these facts of circumstance, these facts of family background uniqueness that feed into the larger plan of the school, and that lead to a better strategy, a better mental health ethos in the school that can be planned. As I said, different schools, different needs. But what is more important is that not just schools. First and foremost, every child is unique. You give the same situation and every child is going to react differently to that. And therefore, the uniqueness of the school is to be accounted for. The uniqueness of the child also has to be accounted for, taken into cognizance while taking administrative duties, functions, decisions, and also while implementing guidance and counseling programs. So first and foremost, I would suggest that it would begin with, of course, need assessment, choosing approaches, the right approach based upon the needs, and also seeking support. We suggest community involvement, using the community as a resource, and utilizing, and as our earlier speakers said, that the link of the parents also need to be harnessed. Because what is done in the school, if it is undone once the child goes out of the school boundaries, the hard work is rendered futile. And therefore, it is important, and NEP 2020 has very effectively taken this into account and suggested that the community needs to be involved, and the counselor and social worker need to go out from the school boundaries and work with the community for effective implementation and better mental health of children. Now, guidance and counseling, as we all know, is based upon the uniqueness, goodness, worth, and dignity of the individual. And education needs to make it the very foundation of all its functioning, to realize what, the aim of education has been understood as the holistic development of the child, and some strategies that can be utilized to bring about this improvement in mental health, to prevent mental illnesses, is that we eliminate first and foremost the misconceptions. And we have certain sessions planned on this in the later sessions for today and tomorrow. Because what we understand is largely people see guidance and counseling means equivalent to mental illness. People who are mentally ill need to go to them. But what we forget is that guidance and counseling is even more important in the preventive domain and needs to be understood like that. Secondly, the step forward would be that we ensure preparedness of our counselors and our school complexes. That is, our school complexes should create a system, both in terms of infrastructure and school ethos, that is based on the philosophy of human uniqueness, human dignity, care, love, compassion. And once this is there, we automatically become practitioners of the preventive domain of guidance and counseling. And further, we can do teacher preparation, like Additional Secretary Changson ma'am also pointed out, that each teacher has to be a sensitized first level counselor. And our Indian system of practice of Guru Shishya Parampara has also, through the ages, done this very effectively. जब गाइडेंस एंड काउंसलिंग एक सेपरेट अंडरस्टैंडिंग के जैसे नहीं आया था, जब काउंसलर्स हमारे स्कूल सिस्टम का इंटेग्रल पार्ट नहीं बने थे, तब भी बहुत से टीचर्स ये काम बखूबी कर रहे थे. हमें उनमें वो सेंसिटिविटी, वो ट्रेनिंग, वो स्पेस फिर से उनको डेवलप करके देना है जिसमें वो इस तरीके से फंक्शन कर पाए और स्कूल के सिस्टम को इनरिच करके बच्चों को वो फीलिंग ऑफ केयर, कंपैशन, सेफ्टी, बीइंग हर्ड, बीइंग अंडरस्टूड कर पाए उनके लिए. अब इनेबलिंग कंडीशंस की जब हम लोग बात करते हैं तो सबसे पहले मन में आता है कि स्कूल प्रैक्टिसेस, हाउ वी rectify wrong behavior, how we convey our disagreement. Small things like these are the practices that paint the larger canvas of the school climate. And once we are conscious of these small aspects, the larger canvas all anyways gets taken care of. Then the school administrators also can provide resource support to guidance and counseling in schools. Of course, there are sessions planned on this also, but guidance and counseling is an activity that has its separate, unique, and very legitimate demands which need to be understood and provided for effective functioning of the system. Then we also talk about taking the guidance and counseling perspective into stage specific. When speaking in psychological term, every stage has its unique demands on the individual, and those unique demands, when met effectively and with sensitivity, can create an individual who is happy and mentally healthy. If not appropriately met, can result in mental illness. So in order to have a student who is holistically developed, mentally healthy, we need to understand, take account of these stage-specific needs, and the administration, the institution, and the counselor in combination work for achieving these stage-specific needs. Institutional support, of course, is one thing that our administrators can provide and goes a long way in building the effectiveness of the guidance and counseling services. Further, teacher training, both at the pre-service, in-service level, is an important constituent in making teachers as first-level counselors, in sensitizing teachers to the goals of guidance and counseling, and in teachers becoming the referral agents, putting the red flags at the right time, and the ethos of the school also gets positively impacted if pre-service and in-service teacher training has these components. What can be done? As I have discussed, enabling condition, curriculum to have aspects of guidance and counseling, teacher training, infrastructure support are largely what can be done. What more can be done is, and what was talked in our inaugural session, is that the assessment of a child, instead of being completely and totally academic, needs to take into account a holistic perspective of the child where his personal, social, and emotional aspects are also accounted for. And this has been very, strongly put forward by NEP 2020, and it has suggested that a holistic progress card for every child be maintained, which has account of everything: academic, personal, social, emotional, and other important aspects, for gauging and helping the child develop in a holistic pattern. Emotional literacy is also very important. Small statements that teachers, administrators make while addressing, talking, have a big impact. We frequently end up saying, "Arey, ladke rote nahi hai, tum ladke ho na, ro mat." But there we curtail and we pass the message that you are not supposed to give importance to feeling. And then that may and most of the time does snowball into probably boys becoming less sensitive, or they not being, feeling capable, sometimes not feeling accepted when they show their feelings. So they learn to somehow either contain their feelings within themselves or not feel at all. So that emotional literacy has to be there, that acceptance has to be there. The building simple things like building the vocabulary. I feel traumatized, I feel stressed, I feel like crying. Let them be very open statements that the child can make and come to you and say. These emotional literacy aspects can play a very important preventive role as far as mental health is concerned and building mental health is concerned. Thank you. Thank you for your patient listening.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchi. Now, friends, we have another probably 15 to 20 minutes, which we will encash it. A good number of audience are available with us. If we could spend this time by way of calling out all the recommendations for this. Now, we have heard what is the status of the mental health and well-being in schools today, different initiatives, CBSE, what CBSE does, and how should we understand mental disorders and issues like that, and what are the guidance and counseling we are doing in NCERT, what are we doing and how are we trying to support. These are the issues that have come now. I would be very happy if we can spend another 15-20 minutes in concretely talking about what needs to be done so that this Indian setup can work better for assuring mental health and well-being among our children. So I would be very happy if the people in the audience can quickly tell us what should happen. And Mr. Tirki is waiting. Pallavi Sharma is also waiting. Maybe Mr. Tirki, you may like to give your recommendation. Over to Mr. Tirki. We have to be brief. We have to be very brief, succinct in our remarks. Yeah, maybe one or two quick recommendations.
Hello, Professor Murthy.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Sir, so one point which comes to my mind, I work as a school counselor in a Delhi-based school. So working with the kids, I mean, there are a lot of things which NCERT is definitely doing, and all over India, a lot of things are happening towards promoting mental health and towards understanding the issues of kids. But one thing, exams. So, I mean, we have exams almost after every 2 months in our schools, and students actually don't get a lot of time to understand. And even when we talk about experiential learning and all these things are happening to a large extent, specifically in the school where I work. But to really enjoy, and when we talk about joyful learning, to be curious about what they learn, that thing is somehow still missing, because it always becomes about exams then. Like the countries, Finland, and even this has come up in Switzerland about reducing the number of exams so that the competitive need is reduced to a bit. So if that's the point.
Thank you, Pallavi. I think you have made your point. Okay. You, in one sentence, you may like to say that exams have become villain and learning has become, exams have become actually basically stressful for us. Learning should be the hero, exam should be the villain, and exam is becoming a hero and learning is becoming a villain. So that's exactly, joyful learning is missing and examination has taken over. Everybody is preparing for the sake of examinations and the joy of learning is missing. That's what is the tone behind what you're trying to say. I appreciate.
Thank you.
Over to Ratna. Ratna, could you kindly come quickly, and then to Mr. Tirki. Yes, succinctly. Quick. Yeah. Ratna.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Ratna Sharma.
Yeah.
My submission, sir, is it's wonderful program which is going on. My submission here is that this mental health awareness should be part of the curriculum of each and every student from class 1 onwards. Like earlier we had moral science lessons, right? Similarly, NCERT is doing wonderful job, but if it could be added in some way or the other, in the curriculum, I'll be highly obliged. I'm a senior counselor and a psychotherapist. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thank you. Thank you. Could we now move on to Mr. Tirki? You have been raising your hand, but okay. KV Coimbatore, Hamsalila. Yeah, Hamsalila. Solunga.
Good afternoon to everyone. Vanakkam, sir.
Vanakkam, Solunga.
So actually, the things I find in the school is, as a student counselor in KV Coimbatore, I find that there's lack of balance between the teachers and students after this pandemic. So to overcome this thing, it's better to conduct a bridge course kind of thing in counseling, especially, which could
What do you mean by lack of balance?
Lack of balance, like lack of social understanding, actually.
Oh, incompatibility. All right.
Yeah. So this should be overcome when we teach them about the social peer relationship. It would be better if this can be taken into account.
Okay. Thank you,
sir.
Anshulila.
Thank you for this initiative.
I hope you're done. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else who may like to, give your suggestions or recommendations as to what should happen in the Indian context?
Yes, I would like to. Hi, I'm Pooja Sharma.
Pooja ji, yeah,
I'm Pooja Sharma from GDU. So there's one point I just want to mention in one line itself. The way there is so much of audits for academics, for a lot of other things in schools, but there is literally no audit for the mental health department at all. So yes, we do a lot of programs, we do a lot of awareness, we create principals, join principals, come and go, but there is no audit. So that is why, after some time it gets very easy and people just leave that. So if that could happen, it will be a great thing for us.
Good, great. Wonderful point, Pooja Sharma ji. No audit for mental health. Good, great. Anybody else who may like to?
Namaskar, sir. Myself, Prince Vigneswar Patnaik from KV Berhampur.
Yes. Patnaik ji, bataiye.
Sir, it is nice to meet you after a long time.
Thank you.
It is my fortunate that I am with you in this program.
Thank you.
Sir, as some speakers told, the career guidance program should be taken out of the school, beyond the school boundary. We should reach the community. This is very important. For that, it is required that the NCERT and the school teachers and KVS, NVS, we should plan together to prepare some modules so that we can reach the people. Otherwise, there is a stigma. If you reach the parents, they may create, they are not ready to accept us. So that acceptance policy, we have to prepare accordingly in the school level. And as the career guidance cell and mental health cell will work, the MANODARPAN is working so nicely for 2 years, and I am part of that also. So I feel we should plan for how to reach the community. This is very important, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Patnaik sir. Very nice meeting you after a long time. Yeah. Next person, please. Anybody else? All right. I think.
Hello. Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, Geeta, yes. Please.
I'm Mrs. Geeta from Kendriya Vidyalaya, Datia. As we see that mental health is the most important thing, as it affects the emotional and physical health of students, holistic development of students. So I feel that this mental health of students should be made the most important, a very important part of teacher training programs.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. We have another 5 minutes. I think I should take this 5 minutes to sum up. Dr. Ruchi, I hope we have 5 minutes to wind up, right? Is that
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Fine. Friends, it has been very nice to listen to all the speakers who have shared their own concerns, their own experiences, their own anxieties. And Dr. Ratna Sharma ji talked about her own experiences in CBSE, and she talked about many things. And Biswajit ji made a very important point, though he spoke only few sentences. He said, we hide mental health problems in the Indian schools and in Indian society, which is very important, I think. We need to create a corner where these things get discussed as a part of our everyday life in our school. Very important, Dr. Saha. Then Professor Veera Gupta talked about policies, classification of disorders, etc. And she talked about the fear of failure as a root cause for everything. I think this is something which we have to, appreciate. Dr. Ruchi Shukla talked about some of the experiences of the NCERT, where we talked about our school surveys, conducting surveys among the KVs and JNVs. Certain things, some of the results that Dr. Ruchi Shukla talked about, they are very easily understandable also. The nature of the schools, KVs and JNVs, are such that their problems can be very easily, understood. And holistic assessment of the child that she, focused is something very, very important. And emotional literacy that we have to bring in our children is something very important. And we should make our children develop all this. And very interestingly, the audience, from the audience, very important, recommendations have come. In fact, exams have started creating so much of fear among our learners. Learning should be the hero. Exam should be, in a way, I mean, for want of a better term I'm using, should be a villain, but then we are celebrating villain and we are forgetting learning. What a paradox that the present system is creating. And examination and assessment should be a part of our teaching learning, and that should not be the hero there. Hero should be the learning, the joy of learning, which we are missing. And Dr. Ratna said mental health should be a part of the curriculum. So very true. How do we now integrate these things? The value education component that we are talking, the moral education concepts that we are talking, why are they missing obliquely from our curriculum and our transactions is something very important. The kind of incompatibility that we talk about, Hansalika talked as a student, talked about the incompatibility that exists between teachers and students. It might be her own personal experience of our own school, but this is true on a macro picture. In many of the school systems, there is an incompatibility between teachers and students. Every head of the institution has a responsibility of addressing this issue. What we need to do, transparency is something which is missing in most of our institutions. We should be avoiding surreptitious ways of handling things, be very open to the children. And if we become transparent, children should come very close to the teachers, and there has to be an audit for mental health. As very rightly said by Pooja Sharma ji, there has to be an audit for mental health. What is the audit that we are doing in our school systems? Something is very important. And Patnaik ji said that take the guidance out of the school boundary is important. I want to make two more important recommendations from my side. Both Kendriya Vidyalayas and Navodaya Vidyalayas are telling us in NCERT that they are going to create a cadre of guidance workers. We have been training a number of teachers from Kendriya Vidyalayas and Navodaya Vidyalayas, and so far we have not been able to create a cadre. This is, to me, a very important requirement, where the PGTs have to be sent for the training for the diploma course in guidance counseling, which we used to call as PG Diploma in Guidance and Counseling, and they should be trained. There is a hope that these PGTs will become principals. Automatically, as school leaders, they are already trained. Number two, NCERT, as NCERT, we should plan to train school heads with a special program. There has to be a special program. This should be definitely an offshoot of this particular conference that we are doing. Special program for school heads. And this should be something like an OER program, where it is available, and the teachers who become head teachers must be able to benefit from these kinds of training programs in their own pace, at their own command and demand. They should be able to benefit from this. If we can work in this direction, perhaps we can make all teachers. One of the models that we are talking is specialized counselors. That's a very expensive model for this country. Teacher counselors is what we are talking about, and guidance teachers is another model that we are talking about, which we need to promote. There are many SCRTs at the state levels who are willing to bring. If we are not able to make teacher counselors, at least let us prepare guidance teachers, in the sense, at least the minimum guidance program should be available. And mental health issues and concerns should be discussed in schools. And we have to sensitize the heads of the institutions in this. It cannot be an ornamental. It cannot be a kind of a lipstick and a bindi service. It has to be an integral part of the school education program, where school heads have to take essentially all the needed care in facilitating school teachers and counselors. And for all that to happen, it would be wonderful if Kendra Vidyalayas and Navodaya Vidyalayas start having a cadre of school counselors. And all other private schools, government schools at the state level should follow Navodaya Vidyalaya and Kendra Vidyalaya. Even at this particular point of time, we are still talking about the non-availability of a cadre of counselors in schools. What are we doing? Private schools have school counselors, but we are taking only on a contractual basis in our Kendra Vidyalayas and Navodaya Vidyalayas. I think that should be stopped. And some of the recommendations which have come here, I think are very important. How beautifully we, put them together and create a bouquet of recommendations from this session. We will leave it to Dr. Ruchi Shukla. And I think I have not taken much time. It is now 1:32. I think from my side, I'm done with this. Thank you very much. Appreciating the time of everyone. I would like to say thank you very much. We should work towards consolidating all these recommendations and practically, pragmatically put right kind of pressures for right kind of people to make it a policy. Otherwise, we'll continue to talk. We will achieve less. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your concluding remarks, and thanks to all the presenters who made time and effort to make the presentations. Hope that all the participants benefited and are left with ideas to work upon. And certainly, as Professor Murthy has pointed out, the recommendations from the participants and sir from you are worth taking note of. And I wish and hope that we all will be able to work on all these recommendations and make our school systems, our Indian schools, much more mental health friendly. Thank you so much. We'll break for lunch and the next session will begin at 2:15. Thank you so much.
Thank you.